Now, South African mining has been on an upward trajectory since the start of 2021, with record sales and production output boosting first quarter GDP data. In March, mineral sales earned miners a record 75 billion rand, with platinum group metals leading the way. The high demand for palladium and rhodium used as catalysts for reducing emissions from petrol engines led to 31 billion rand in sales in the subsector. So is the mining sector primed to continue reaping the benefits of the current commodities boom? For more on the story now, we're joined by Ntokozo Ngcwabe, the Deputy Director General in the Department of Minerals and Energy, in charge of attracting investment. Ntokozo, it's great to have you with us on the show this morning. Thanks for your time. First question, I suppose, is how much of a role, and we've already outlined it, it's seemingly quite a big role that the commodity boom is playing in boosting the mining sector, particularly this quarter?
Morning, Michelle. Certainly, the commodities boom has a huge role to play in the recovery that we're seeing. But I must say that it's not only the commodity prices that have contributed to the growth that we're seeing, but largely the set of interventions that we put in place when the country went into lockdown last year. I mean, immediately, like within a week of the country going into hard lockdown, we brought together the industry stakeholders and came up with industry-specific guidelines, which had to do with how we were going to ensure that we keep the economy going while protecting livelihoods and saving lives. And we then implemented interventions such as having a phased-in approach, where we said to ensure security of energy supply for the country, we cannot afford to close down collieries, and we allowed open cast collieries to operate at 100%. We also looked at issues of tampering with administered pricing. We came together with our stakeholders from different subsectors within the industry and looked at specific issues that affected different sectors like smelters, which had to continue operating because we understood that if we were to shut them down abruptly, restarting them at a later stage would be very costly and some of the equipment would have been damaged. So it's very much a combination of the boom, which we are taking advantage of, but also to a large degree, the interventions that the department came up with.
So in terms of the effects of the pandemic, of the lockdown, the continuing effect of Eskom having just announced that load shedding restarting this morning from 10 o'clock this morning, set to last until 10 p.m. In fact, Eskom warning of these rolling blackouts throughout the winter months to come. What does that mean for the recovery of the sector?
Well, the economy depends a lot on electricity or power supply. And a stable, secure, and reliable power supply is one of our biggest preoccupations on a daily basis. You would have seen that from our side as the policy department, in a short space of time, over the past 2 years, and more so over the past 12 months, we've really implemented concrete interventions to ensure that we increase the generation capacity. For example, if you look at what Minister announced in the budget vote speech last month, it's clear interventions. For example, the 1,200 megawatts that have come online from a bid window 4 and 200 megawatts that Eskom has procured from independent power producers, and the 1,000 megawatts that will be coming on stream later on in the year. So it's quite a lot that has been done in the Section 34 determination that was issued by Minister last year, as well as the concurrence by NERSA to that Section 34 determination. All those interventions are really geared towards ensuring that we create that an enabling environment for a secure and stable electricity supply. What remains from there on really resides within a DPE and Eskom. But from our side as a policy department, we've really moved with speed to ensure that we provide that support. And the most recent intervention in that regard is us gazetting, Minister gazetted on the 23rd of April, the amendment to Schedule 2 of the Electricity Regulation Act, which increased the threshold for registration of embedded generation from 1 to 10 megawatts. And the comments period closed about 4 days ago. And that is also another intervention that's going to ensure that we really support power generation and overall support the economy going forward.
You know, Ntokozo, I'm not sure how many energy experts, certainly that we've spoken to, will agree that the department has moved with speed in terms of getting more independent power producers online. You talk about I think you said 2,000 megawatts that independent power producers are bringing onto the grid. Why not expand that mandate when IPPs themselves say they can address our power shortages by as early as July of 2021?
Well, Michelle, you know, I just quoted a few of the interventions. One of the most recent is the fact that we've gone out with bid window 5. It's a broader picture where we've steadily been increasing generation capacity. Bid window 5 is on stream. We are on it. But also on the nuclear side, we've tested the market in the form of us requesting, sending out the request for information, and the request for proposal will be out in a few months' time for us to say, let's now receive proposals for generation in that regard on nuclear power. So it's a whole set of interventions which we've been systematic and steady about, but it's progress in the right direction, definitely, to ensure that we increase generation capacity. There's no limitation. And the whole conversation about this 10 megawatt for registration as opposed to licensing, we are saying, much as we gazetted a proposal for 10, we are not limiting it to 10. We are not married to a number. But we are being systematic and scientific about this as we do it, so that we ensure that whatever the final number will be, we would have been based on science and would have been informed by the market. In fact, we are quite convinced that the 10 will help us test the market. And in a few months into the implementation of the 10 megawatt for self-generation, we would then have a good sense. And if there is a need at the time for us to push the threshold higher, we would definitely be open to that. And we're willing also to look at projects on a case-by-case basis.
Yeah.
For example, there's quite a number of companies that have approached us in the mining space with different generation capacities that they're proposing. And we are looking at those, and we will be assisting them in ensuring that we move with speed for licensing for them.
Let's talk about mining again, and it relates to my question around the country's reliable or lack of reliable energy supply in Ntokozo. In terms of investment appetite in the mining sector, what's that looking like now? I mean, I imagine that not having reliable supply, it has a major effect on that.
Well, you're correct, Michelle. Energy supply sits at the center of economic growth. And for as long as we don't have a stable energy supply, our economy will not grow. This is why this is our biggest preoccupation on a daily basis. At the moment, we are following on all the investment pledges that were made by different investors at the previous two investment conferences. And what we are getting from those investors is firm commitments that indicate that they're still committed to investing. And one good thing with all of this is that we are walking this walk with our social partners. They are saying to us, assist us in this regard. One, a good example is investments into exploration, whether on brown or greenfields projects. We are seeing a number of those coming on stream. One, a good example is work being done by DBS in their Venetia mine. They're spending money into the exploration for expansion purposes, but we've also seen, I'm sure you've picked up over the weekend, the license that, the mining right that we've issued, or the renewal right in the Barberton area for a gold operation. There's going to be huge investments going into that mine. There's also the Orion project in the Northern Cape. Huge investments being made into that project. So the investment appetite is quite good, but our investors or social partners have been frank with us to say, address electricity challenges, address licensing challenges, and we really are hard at work in addressing those challenges to ensure that we unlock the investment potential that is there. But we are quite happy with the investment appetite that we're seeing at the moment.
In terms of ensuring that the sector, the mining sector, does benefit from the current commodities boom that we are seeing in Ntokozo, give us just very quickly some background in terms of how the sector has managed in terms of job retention through the pandemic, and what the prediction is for the months to come.
Michelle, interesting that you talk about jobs retention. In actual fact, 2 days ago, we had a meeting of the economic cluster. And one of the presentations we received at that meeting was a presentation by Statistician General, where he was sharing employment figures for quarter one of 2021 with us. And it was very interesting for us to note that the mining sector has actually gained about 12,000 jobs. So this recovery is really indicating to us that we are moving in an upward trend. We are moving in a positive direction, and we are doing all we can to ensure that we take advantage of the boom through ensuring that we create an enabling environment. One of the challenges which we are not shying away from is the challenge that we've been having for quite a while with our licensing system. And we've taken the initiative to say, let us fix our licensing system such that it's easy to process licenses and issue them within prescribed timeframes, or even shorter as prescribed in the law, to ensure that we encourage investments. And we're doing that along with the work that we're doing on the exploration strategy, which we will be taking to Cabinet, by the way, within a month or so, to ensure that we come out clear with our exploration pact, to say this is the direction we want to take as a country, come and partner with us. And these are the incentives that we will be availing to potential investors. And those incentives would include, in essence, interventions such as tampering with administered prices. We've already developed a framework for negotiated pricing agreements, which are geared towards supporting energy-intensive sectors such as mining. And there's quite a number of others which are not necessarily administered by us, like the tax uplifts which are implemented, administered by the National Treasury. But it's a whole host of interventions that we're looking at in partnership with other sister departments.
Yeah, and those interventions will be needed specifically if we're going to see those employment numbers, not only in the mining sector, which, as you say, has been spared from the unemployment statistics that were released just last week, now sitting at 32.6%. In fact, the Statistician General, who you met with there in Ntokozo, is saying that 8,000 additional people are now unemployed in our country, 7.2 million people without a job. All of these issues so closely linked, especially in terms of energy supply. Ntokozo Ngcwabe, thanks very much for your time this morning, giving us an update there on the mining sector and what's been unfolding there since the start of 2021. She is the Deputy Director General in the Department of Minerals and Energy, in charge of attracting investment.